What's going on, everybody? Today is truly a great day to be great in general, but also to potentially win $250,000. That's right, we are back in those best ball streets over at Underdog Fantasy, trying to take down the big board on this lovely Monday afternoon. And by we, I mean myself and Professor Pete himself. That's right, it's our resident best ball expert over here at Fantasy Life, Peter Overzet. Pete, what's up, man?
Not much, dude. Excited to be back on the channel, drafting teams with you. It's always funny because I feel like for some people, they're already hundreds of drafts deep. I know that sounds insane, but there are people out there who have done that. And then for other people, they're like, I'm not doing my draft until August. Wait, what? Why? You guys are drafting in March? So it's always fun to see where on the spectrum people are.
Feel free to live vicariously through Pete and myself. If you hate the draft, love the draft, anything in between, again, we are just drafting, in March. So whatever it goes. But Pete, we're both kind of in the similar, I think, range at this point. I think I was saying before the show, 17 or 18 drafts. That about where you are as well?
Yeah, exactly. I've been drafting on stream on Mondays. I did a couple slow drafts with the $100 contest. But as you know, like we're going to be drafting all summer nonstop. And so for me, it's very much a marathon and not a sprint. I don't want to burn myself out. But I will say, as each passing day goes by with free agency in the rearview mirror, with the combine behind us, I'm getting more and more antsy to draft. I have more and more player takes. I have guys I want to go get before their price gets too expensive. So I'm feeling the tipping point to me doing a ton of drafts here very shortly.
Peter Overzet on YouTube, Best Ball Breakfast live streams. Always a great time over there. Make sure you guys check those out if you haven't already. But Pete, we're about to be on the clock, picking from the 106. Kind of seems like there's been a consensus, big six or big seven in these drafts. We are going to have our pick between some of them. But thoughts on maybe scrolling down a little bit and getting someone like Brian Thomas to differentiate here?
Yeah, I do think it's a really flat tier. I'm actually Malik Neighbors over Brian Thomas, but okay. I think I like Puka, I like Nico, I like CeeDee Lamb. I guess I'm a chalk guy, but Neighbors is fun, right? If you want to have a little fun, I don't mind doing Neighbors right now.
I like fun. I like Jameis Winston, and thus I like Malik Neighbors. Come on down with the 106. So it was one of those things just where, again, I get it. If I was picking in my home league and I'm not competing against hundreds of thousands of entries, I would be perfectly fine taking CeeDee Lamb there. But do you think there is something to be said, Pete, about just trying to take someone in round one or round two where you aren't going to see them in that draft position very often? Because otherwise, again, it's just going to be hard to kind of be contrarian inside the first couple rounds of the draft.
Yeah, I always think of it depending on how many entries you're doing. If you're only going to do a couple drafts in this contest, then just go get your guys. Like if you want a team that has Brian Thomas, go take Brian Thomas. Like you're not going to have a lot of cracks to get him. I think once you start doing more volume, if you're doing more than 20 drafts or 25, then it's like the randomized gods are probably going to give you roughly equal amount of shots at each draft spot. That's kind of how I tend to play, is like I'll take the best player available in round one. But to your point, for some reason, all of my draft slots, and it sounds like I'm complaining, I'm not really, have been early draft slots. And I've been getting bored. Like I've taken a lot of Barkley, I've taken a lot of Bijan and Gibbs. And so on my stream, last week I took Ginty at 3. I took Nico Collins at 2, because I'm like, I haven't had a chance to draft these guys. I've been on the opposite side of the board. I'm probably only going to get 20, 25 entries into this contest. I want exposure to a couple of those guys.
And again, you're still picking guys that certainly have a realistic chance to finish as a top player at their position. It's not like we're taking, the wide receiver 14 at pick number 5 overall. Genty's certainly someone who's going to have that in his range of outcomes at running back as well. So after Neighbors really has been a run on wide receivers, which you'll see all the time over here at Underdog Fantasy. CD, Puka, Nico, Brian Thomas, and our one true sun god of Amon-Ra St. Brown closing out round 1. So as we get into round 2 now, Pete, still got a few picks before we go beyond the clock, but just out of kind of the top 25, 30 players, has there been anyone so far with, this sort of high ADP that you just haven't been making a habit of clicking?
Yeah, we see Derrick Henry go at the 1-2 turn. That definitely seems pricey to me. And that is ahead of ADP. Like we're going to see Chan come off the board, who just did CMC. Like, I'm sorry, I can't take Derrick Henry over CMC. Like I know CMC's coming back from injury and stuff. So that one strikes me as a little rich. If we're chasing last year, I'm much more willing to, chase Barkley than I am Henry. I mean, Henry, I would look at our, utilization score every week, and like Henry's would be like in the 6s or something because he wasn't catching passes. And so that one strikes me as a little rich. I'm trying to think if there's any others that I'm really like going out of my way not to click, but that's the one at the top of mind.
What about Tyreek Hill for you? Because I mean, he's someone where I get it. He's coming off the injury and everything, but I don't know, Pete. It's not like we were watching Tyreek Hill every week going, man, if he just didn't have that broken wrist, like he could have caught that pass. I mean, I checked. He only dropped 3 passes last season, and yet even you look at, once Tua was back, still wasn't even able to put up top 20 numbers. So really, we're still treating him as a wide receiver 1?
I know. And it's like part of me just wishes he would have had the wrist surgery and just shut down his season last year. And then maybe would be, on the path to him being all back to full health. I think there's a few veterans that are like that. I mean, I think we could have that conversation about Debo too. Obviously he's cheaper, but it's like how much of his performance last year and lack of efficiency was due to injury and how much of it is, hey, this is a aging wide receiver.
100%. Well, we are back on the clock in round 2. Drake London went just before us. Best running backs available: Jonathan Taylor, Bucky Irving, Josh Jacobs, Ladd McConkey, Tyreek, and T. Higgins at wide receivers. So no tight end just yet as well. Pete, you got a lean here?
I've been seeing Ladd go real early. So this seems like a kind of nice value. I also don't mind you queuing up Jonathan Taylor there as well. I think those would be my top 2 choices there by ADP as well.
I went ahead and pulled the trigger on Jonathan Taylor. I've talked to Dwayne about this, but I just feel like one of the lessons that I took away, at least from last year, and it's nothing against Ladd. He's honestly been running so pure already in free agency that I got to kind of recalibrate my brain, because I just expected the Chargers to be adding this pass game competition, and they really haven't. So maybe he is, certainly viable and okay to go in the middle of round 2. But when I look at Jonathan Taylor after these first 9 or 10 wide receivers, I'm just thinking, why am I taking a chance on more of this borderline wide receiver 1 or upside wide receiver 2, where I can just draft Jonathan freaking Taylor and take my 300 plus touches home to the bank?
Yeah, he does seem like one of the safer picks here in round 2. And, he was a league winner last year. I mean, had a slow start and then just went absolutely nuts in the fantasy playoffs. Seems like he's mostly quarterback proof, right? Like if it's Richardson, if it's Daniel Jones, like they're going to give him the ball a ton. So yeah, I don't mind Jonathan Taylor at all in this range. And I'm with you. Like Ladd's interesting. On paper, it makes a ton of sense. I think there are ways where his volume is diminished in that, 1, they continue to be a run heavy offense, and 2, they bring someone in, whether they attack it in the draft. There's even been a little murmurs like, what if Keenan Allen made a return home to LA? Then it's like, can you really bank on 10 plus targets a game? So I always like betting on these young second-year wide receivers who flashed in year 1. So you're not going to get a ton of pushback from me on Ladd, but I do agree there's a little sticker shock there.
Ladd literally, I believe, was the wide receiver 5 in PPR points per game during the second half of last season, even going into that massive playoff game he had against the Texans as well. So again, don't think McConkey, is necessarily mispriced at the position, but Jonathan Taylor for me is that, special sort of running back who, if he does have, the chance to break off several of those long runs that you just don't really see from other players of the position. Certainly, I've seen him do that before. Maybe we just, get away with not having a high ankle sprain to start his year for once here in 2025. But coming back around to us, Pete, in round 3, we have Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, DJ Moore, Connor Williams at the top of the queue. Looks like we missed out on Trey McBride, which is unfortunate. I've loved getting him in round 3. So any thoughts on where you'd like to go here?
Yeah, I mean, this tier feels really flat to me. I think like my favorite bet is honestly probably just like Mike Evans. Like he's just like tried and true, this 3rd round pick. I prefer him over like DJ Moore there. And I don't know, I think now that we kind of got our anchor running back, I think you could talk me into Chase Brown too. He's an interesting guy to talk through, but Evans would probably be my lean. What do you think?
I'm fine going with Evans. I think him versus, honestly, Devontae Adams would be the other guy that I prefer. But Adams, we actually have a chance of being able to get in round 4. But his ADP, certainly coming up. So the running backs, Chase Brown's another one of those guys. I'm not too concerned about Samaje Perine. Maybe it won't be ideal for his, 2-minute offense, but not going to be playing that heavy of snaps anyway. But I mean, look, with Chase Brown, if the Bengals come out here on, round 2, round 3, and they draft one of the Ohio State running backs or one of these, guys that were here being lauded, that's going to kill Chase Brown. It's nice what he did during the second half of last season, but Pete, I feel like it just gets completely left out of the conversation how average he was before an average running back in himself. Zach Moss got hurt. I mean, we can't just assume that Chase Brown's going to have that featured role from day 1 moving forward.
Yeah, and I feel like that uncertainty is priced into his ADP. The comp I've been thinking about him, and it's funny because Kyron Williams is going in the same place really this year again, is Kyron Williams heading into this past year, right? Where it was like, hey, could they draft someone? Well, yes, they did. Blake Corum. Could that result in a volume reduction? Yes, it could. It didn't, and he was a really good pick relative to where he went because it was basically just running back what he had done the year before. That's how I feel about Chase Brown. It's like if you knew he was going to do what he did again this year, he'd be a first-round pick, late first-round pick. And so the market is saying, hey, there's uncertainty here. Another guy could siphon off touches. This is a really deep running back class. What if they add someone that has a little bit of juice? Then, things get a little shakier. So I like Chase Brown at this price because I feel like it's kind of balancing both of those dynamics.
What does kind of kill me about Kyron Williams, who again was awesome in fantasy last year, but he really almost was Kareem Hunt, Pete. Like he was not explosive at all. He had really bad efficiency, tackle breaking numbers and stuff. Much better the previous 2 years of his career. So I'm not saying it wasn't just 1 year blip on the radar. Rams offensive line wasn't anything to write home about. But getting some pushback on one of my recent columns on Fantasy Life, where I'm wondering like, why couldn't Najee Harris, now on the other Los Angeles squad, be a similar archetype as Kyron, as Joe Mixon? An inefficient volume hog and an offense that we generally like, but it is Najee Harris. So I do understand why people aren't exactly thrilled about that as well. So we'll see what happens. But getting into round 4, unfortunately, it does look like my guy Devontae Adams did go. Still have James Cook available as a top RB. Devonta Smith, Jameson Williams, Zay Flowers also sticking out. Maybe Jalen Hurts if you feel like getting a lead at the onesie as well.
Yeah, Jalen Hurts, you obviously miss out on Devonta Smith just because he's not going to come back. And then you can kind of pencil in Dallas Goedert, although, he requested a trade. So who knows if that stack is even there. Not that you have to force stacks with Jalen Hurts. Cook is an interesting value here. I also like Zay Flowers. What do you think here?
I think Zay Flowers is the one guy out of this group where if we ever could if anyone here is just going to completely blow up, I think it's Zay Flowers. You know what I'm saying? Like he is the number 1 wide receiver for the Baltimore Ravens. Unfortunately got injured before their playoff run last year. But you just watch what he does, and I understand he's used in this kind of screen, lower 8-out role and everything. But when they have asked him to go deep, he's been able to. And we also got to remember he's only, entering his 3rd year in the NFL right now. So round 4, certainly could be a bit steep for home leagues and everything. But especially in Underdog where the wide receivers are flying off the board. Hey, it's Lamar Jackson's clear-cut wide receiver 1. He tied for the NFL lead, I believe, in terms of 100-plus yard games last year. I mean, he has boom upside, and just because he's not getting those, deep balls all the time, hey, we'll take 9 catches over 100 yards versus 3 for 100, Pete. That's more fantasy points.
For sure. Yeah, we've seen it as well. Like we've seen him explode for some massive league winning games. And I do think it's a little discount because he was out of sight, out of mind during the fantasy playoffs. You see some of these other guys, obviously Xavier Worthy, Devonta Smith, those guys finished pretty strong. Zay Flowers, I think, deserves to be in that conversation. And we're basically like getting a cheaper price than we did last year. And we saw what it looks like when Zay Flowers really operates as the alpha. So yeah, I like that a lot there. Obviously, we're not going to be able to get Lamar with him. He went early 3rd round, but Zay Flowers just getting access to that offense. And, one other thing too, like we saw last year, the Ravens defense, they took a little bit of a step back, then they kind of got better at the end of the season. But if that defense has some injuries and they're forced into more shootouts, it could be some insane production for the passing game.
Brought in DeAndre Hopkins, Rashad Bateman, certainly doing a lot of good things as their deep threat. But man, it's just Zay Flowers is one of these guys where when I watch him and, I think we could actually rank him close to a top 15 real life wide receiver, even if the target volume isn't over there. I mean, again, I'm going to be wrong on someone. I do want to be a player that I truly believe in their real life talent as well. And Zay Flowers is that guy, pal. So other wide receivers in that range too, Jameson Williams. I mean, hey, last year obviously made the most out of his opportunities. Wouldn't shock any of us though if he finishes 3rd, hell, maybe even 4th in terms of targets on his own team. Rashee Rice, I still don't understand, Pete. Is he ever going to get suspended? Is this thing going to happen? Or does the U.S. legal system just have other stuff to do?
I know. I feel like at this point, every day that goes by, it becomes less and less likely that something is going to happen. So I've been drafting him in this, exact range, 4-5 turn. I mean, I think it's interesting to think through if he hadn't gotten hurt where would his ADP go? Like at this time last year, people were drafting him in the late second, early third. This is obviously before Xavier Worthy was drafted. Xavier Worthy breaks out in a massive way. You can't, put that toothpaste back in the tube, so to speak. But I think he's a good value at the 4 or 5 turn, just thinking through the upside scenarios.
Needs to work through the LCL tear. Obviously not a normal injury to come back from, but that did happen all the way back in September, again, on that friendly fire from Patrick Mahomes. And before he did get injured, he was literally the wide receiver 1 in fantasy. So yeah, might have to start changing my mind on that, Pete, because I got late to the party. It was like kind of end of July when I decided to start drafting Rashee Rice every freaking draft. But hey, we'll take a late March in 2025.
Yeah, bummer. I was hoping George Kittle would fall to us. Yeah. I think he's such a nice price there in the 5th round. Just a boss year in and year out. I know. Was it because I wrote up our ranks the other day? It was 2 of our rankers had him in the top 35. I don't know if you were one of those 2 or if you were the dissenter on Kittle. But even the 3rd person in our ranks wasn't that much lower on him.
As we get into round 5, I will check our, if I've been slandering George Kittle here in a second. But so some good running backs here. I think Kenneth Walker and lesser extent Chuba Hubbard are reasonable, but we could just start building that mega Tampa Bay stack and get Chris Godwin. What say you?
Well, I was going to say, I wrote up the ranks and you were higher than anyone else at Fantasy Life on Chuba Hubbard. I feel like if I'm with the Chuba Hubbard guy, we got to take him.
No. I don't want to be the Chuba Hubbard guy. I would rather fix that. Godwin or Walker.
You were like 20 picks ahead of everybody on Chuba Hubbard, and you're not even going to take him. You're a Chuba Hubbard fraud.
Oh no, I did not want this to come out like this. Ian. We are going off the rails in round 5. I'm pulling up the film over here. What is going on? Why does everyone hate Chuba Hubbard though? Come on, it's Chuba Hubbard. What's the difference? Rico Dowdle?
Hey, why are you're talking you're preaching to the choir. You just took Kenneth Walker over your guy.
Yeah, I am a bit of a fraud. I have done my next For the record, I have Walker ahead of everyone else too. Those are 2 good running backs.
Okay. So when I wrote up for the newsletter the other day, I basically compared your, Dwayne, and Friedman's ranks to try to find like the guys where there was an outlier, basically, where one of you is much higher. This is what I said. If there's one thing everyone can agree on, it's that Hubbard is a rock solid pick in the 5th round of drafts, but our guy Ian is even more bullish, slotting him in at 28th, which would be an early 3rd round value. The Hubbard eval ultimately comes down to how much you think new signee Rico Dowdle will be involved. But I thought I was here and you were going to be like, yeah, let's go, Pete. You ready? Let's do Chuba. And then you're like, nah.
Okay. I have Hubbard, RB13. Yes, he is much higher in the overall ranks compared to some of the other folks out here. So, not going to completely back down from this, but I do think it comes back to my general, I'm just higher on running backs overall, especially this group of them where, again, I don't want to assume every single year is going to be like 2024 where these guys aren't getting injured and they're just, workhorses all over the place. But yeah, I do think we saw Chuba get that massive contract in November, relatively massive, at least for a running back these days. So yeah, man, why can't he work out? But him and Kenneth Walker, Joe Mixon, those are 3 running backs in round 5 where, again, what's really the difference between Chuba, Walker, or Mixon and someone like Kyren Williams and Breece Hall? Not trying to hate on those players. I think they're fine in round 3, but round 5 values, in my opinion.
No, for sure. And I guess the reason I prefer Chuba over Walker is I think Dowdle is way less of a threat to kind of his workload than Zach Charbonnet has been to Walker's. Like the team just seems to each year have more and more faith in Charbonnet. They'll use him a little at the goal line. They like him in passing situations. I do love what Kenneth Walker does for best ball, just being like a home run hitter. But man, I just we've seen bell cow Chuba. They just paid him. Jonathan Brooks isn't going to be a thing. You can't imagine they're going to draft someone that high after spending that pick on Jonathan Brooks last year. So I just think Chuba is just a really rock solid RB2.
And this is good, though, because, it's easy to set ranks with your Excel spreadsheet. But once you're actually getting, some skin in the game and forced to make these decisions on camera and when the middle of a best ball draft helps me adjust them. So we'll see what happens there. In the round 6, though, Pete, we're on the clock. Calvin Ridley, can I interest you?
Sure. Yeah. I think it's a receiver here. Obviously would be willing to talk through George Pickens, even though he's a little slider post DK Metcalf, but certainly into Calvin Ridley. And he's kind of a fun stack with Cam Ward later in the draft if you want to play it that way.
definitely a chance to get that. I just think with Ridley, again, if you look at some of these players, Garrett Wilson is another one. Honestly, could be similar breakouts. I was hoping that maybe Jameis can get to the Titans and give Ridley that chance. But if we looked up in week 16 or week 17 and we're like, oh man, Ridley's 5 total targets off the league high. I mean, I just wouldn't be surprised. They have nobody else there. I'm sure they'll add a rookie, but Calvin Ridley, still someone that I think is generally a pretty freaking good wide receiver. And we've seen that over the course of these years. Getting a little bit older in terms of his, regular age, but in terms of football years, maybe he's, can argue a bit younger. So I do think, you look at how Callahan was using him in Tennessee, a lot of good pre-snap motion. And yeah, maybe Cam Ward, the number 1 overall pick, is good at football. So Calvin Ridley, again, one of the cheapest wide receivers you can just very comfortably rank as a number 1 target runner in their offense.
Yeah, I mean, his Ridley's usage last year was awesome. He was up there as a league leader in air yards every week. They were just uncatchable balls. His quarterback play was atrocious. They built the entire offense out of him. And yeah, I was pretty impressed with his play last year. And I was chasing him a lot in DFS and stuff, just being like, man, if he ever connects on these, well, now you get a huge quarterback upgrade. And I think things could really start to click there. So obviously you start to get a little worried about the age with some of these veterans up here, but I think his game will age fairly gracefully.
Any longtime listeners of the Fantasy Life show who are checking out Dwayne and I talking through the Sheeshes every week are very familiar with Ridley. And yes, he did finish last year number 1 in unrealized air yards. Only guy with over 1,000. Absolute Sheeshy pain there. But through 6 rounds, Malik Neighbors, Mike Evans, Zay Flowers, and Calvin Ridley filling out the wide receiver room. We also got Jonathan Taylor and Kenneth Walker holding down RB. So we're pretty set at the key positions, Pete. Now, I do think we have an opportunity to keep on adding. Don't really see, we can, I think, go after Baker probably round 8. This would be a little bit early for him. So I'm comfortable with, another running back here if we want, but maybe start looking at these rookie wide receivers as well if you're interested.
Yeah. I mean, are you buying the Cowboys being in the mix to draft Golden at 12?
Maybe. I could see it.
I mean, I will America just say if he goes to the Cowboys at 12, he's going way earlier than this in drafts this summer. He'll be a 5th round pick if he goes to the Cowboys at 12.
And he's our wide receiver 5 here. It's not like we're going to be relying on him as an every week starter. So even if he does fall to round 2 and goes to the Cowboys, is he really going to be that different from where he is in this spot? I don't really think so.
Yeah. And then, I mean, I don't know, on this team where we have some, on some teams, right? If you started with a lot of early running backs, then give me Jacoby Myers, give me Khalil Shakur, give me some bankable production. This team is pretty balanced right now, and I think we can take a big swing at the wide receiver position. I mean, Golden is the epitome of a swing. He's either going to flop, it'll be really bad, or if it hits, it's my kind of comp that I've been thinking of him is kind of like the Will Fuller to CeeDee Lamb's DeAndre Hopkins. That's kind of how I would see that playing out in that scenario.
Cowboys got to do something early with these wide receivers. And, I don't even know. Maybe they do go Genty at pick 12. I think it's probably be, more behoove them to start restocking that offensive line, very long time away now from 2016, back when they used to be an elite bunch up front. So, yeah, maybe Matthew Golden does slide there at 1 or 2, but either way, going to be some wide receiver. Cowboys, Patriots, Broncos, Chargers are obviously another one. There's still a couple of these landing spots where these guys are going to be going crazy. And I do think it brings up a good, just general question right now, Pete, for anyone crazy enough to be drafting in March like us. Do you try to, again, really kind of load up on these rookies and maybe even some of the lingering free agents? Because those are the guys who you can draft right now and, reasonably expect the ADP to potentially skyrocket in the near future.
Yeah, and I mentioned this in an early big board draft strategy article I did for Fantasy Life, but this honestly blew my mind when I saw it. The winning team in the big board, this contest last year, the pre-NFL draft contest, had 10 rookies on it. 10 rookies were on the winning team. And obviously last year we had just some insane hits, right? You had Jaden Daniels, you had Brock Bowers, obviously Bucky Irving, Jalen McMillan, Ricky Pearsall. But it goes to show that the players who can smash their ADP are the rookies, because there's uncertainty right now. What team are they going to get drafted to? Is the draft capital going to be good enough? Like some of these running backs, with how deep this class are, there's going to be one that surprises us going like late round 2 or early round 3. And we're like, holy shit, like now Damian Martinez is going in like round 7 of drafts. Like I'm just making something up, but that's what's going to happen here. And so being willing to embrace that volatility, you're going to have a lot of whiffs, but I'm telling you, landing on this year's Bucky Irving is worth way more than missing on 3 of these guys. Like if you had one major hit for 3 misses, like that is actually being profitable in the way these tournaments work, because those hits are so important.
Moving on to the middle of round 8. Again, just got our 5th wide receiver in Matthew Golden. Had Ridley, Zay Flowers, Mike Evans, Malik Neighbors before him. Very strong at running back right now with Jonathan Taylor and Kenneth Walker. Arguably could have been Chuba Hubbard. We'll watch the film and get better there, holding down the RB spots. But do we want Baker Mayfield if he falls to us here, Pete? I don't think we necessarily need it. We have Giants, Titans, wide receivers, so there's other stacks. But that'd be pretty cool, Baker.
Is the Godwin drafter behind us or in front of us?
Good question.
Did you go to the board? I don't remember where Godwin went.
Godwin went round 5. He is behind us.
So my thought, what if do we take McMillan and see if we can push Baker around and get the double stack? That's kind of the fun. People will take unstacked Baker. I'm not saying it's a lock, but that's one option if we think we want to play with it.
Let's do it. Let's see what happens. Because this is a way of kind of just cornering out the rest.
Exactly. And just saying like, okay, if you want unstacked Baker, and there's really, I guess you could stack him late with Kate Otten. That's not really that fun. Yeah. We're kind of daring the room. And I'm not going to be like, oh, this team's ruined if we don't get Baker. Like we still are going to have other stacks. You were mentioning how we have these other stack outs, and we're only going to draft 2 to 3 quarterbacks anyways. It's essentially like we're going to have a stack with the Bucs without the quarterback. So we'll have 4 or 5 stacks. That's fine. We want to make a bet on, hey, this offense, and of course he goes one pick after us, unstacked here. But I think it was a worthwhile gamble there.
Too perfect. And now we have some work to do with our quarterback room. We'll continue to discuss whether or not we should have gone with McMillan right after this quick break to our friends over at Bud Light.
Hey, you're not actually allowed to drink in a beer commercial?
Since when?
You gotta wait till it's done. Oh,
5,
4, 3, 2, 1.
Just so best ball, Pete, to not even let you get through, the rant there. And 30 seconds later to have Baker go off the board. But again, this happens though. Like I was literally doing a draft yesterday, and Patrick Mahomes went 20 picks past ADP. Like I got him like pick 100 or something, and wasn't even stacked. And it's like, oh my gosh, it's Patrick Mahomes. Got some other guys there. But this range of quarterbacks, because again, you guys can, shout out YouTube fam, you can look at it right now. But we had the last quarterback go in round 4 in terms of Jalen Hurts there at the very end. Have not had one since until round 8. So Caleb Williams, Brock Purdy, Patrick Mahomes, Baker Mayfield, Bo Nix. Yes, they all do have similar ADP around each other, but because there's all these guys together, you will see them fall. And again, particularly, not in this case, but often times when, again, you are able to kind of get away from the other team that maybe you're competing with.
Yeah, and you do have to be careful in this specific range, because you'll look at the queue and you'll see all this purple and you'll be like, man, there's a ton of quarterbacks. But then you'll also see they will fly off the board. Like everyone starts to get their quarterbacks here. So let's look at our wide receivers again and kind of see what are the potential stack options we have.
Did Fields already go? He's one that I do like. We could probably wait a little bit on that one, but Fields would be one where we don't even need to really worry about a stack. Similar sentiment, just more risky with Anthony Richardson. Otherwise, Cam Ward's going to be a very late one. We can get wonky, little 20th round Jameis. Come on, that's what drafting in March is all about. And otherwise,
what about like Drake May would be another one that doesn't really have to necessarily be stacked. And we
maybe
could do
we
the
already
DAC,
have the stack, and his name's Matthew Golden.
Exactly. That's what I was saying. We could do, we could pretend that we are right, Andre. So let's see here. I think unless there's a faller you think we should lock up here, I definitely don't mind ETN. It's just how fast and loose we want to play at quarterback here, because we could get the queue wiped out.
I'm down to wait another round and then address our first one. What about Michael Pittman? Did a broken back,
Okay.
puts us in line for Richardson, maybe even Daniel Jones if we feel like
Yeah,
hating ourselves.
If we're going in on the Colts, and what you could end up getting, we could do a really funky like Frankenstein room. Like you could do something where you go, this is real Galbraith. But if you really punted it and you're like, I'm going to do Richardson, Daniel Jones, Jameis Winston, and like Cam Ward. Like you could do something like
last four.
Really, yeah.
We haven't taken any tight ends yet either, so it might end up being a similar sentiment, just, punting the onesies, but then using 7 picks on them. Because there are some late values where they're going to be rising up. Even someone like Aaron Rodgers. I know we don't have him right now, but he's going like well outside the top 32. He's going to sign with one of these teams here soon, and he'll be in the veteran, QB range.
Yeah, and I think this week, for Fantasy Life, I'm going to write up like kind of my preferred tight end strategy. And it's like barbelled. It's getting the elites, getting a Brock Bowers, a Trey McBride, or George Kittle, or getting one of the late round rookies. Dwayne and his model's really high on Harold Fannin Jr. I like taking stabs on Mason Taylor, on Elijah Arroyo. So we'll have, you don't get boxed out at tight end. You'll get boxed out at quarterback, but you won't get boxed out at tight end. There's tons of options on the back half of the board.
I like that first or last mindset with it. Evan Ingram, someone who I think you could honestly rank tight end 6. Like he should be in that tier with guys like David Njoku and even Mark Andrews. He's still going tight end 13, pick 130. Isaiah Likely, is someone that we saw, again, just straight up outperform Mark Andrews for stretches. And seems like it'd be a little bit too late for the Ravens to get rid of Andrews, but there have been murmurs of that throughout the offseason. And God forbid that does happen. Isaiah Likely would be on the move up in a hurry. I think Jake Ferguson's price is just surprisingly too low. Probably more so because of the injuries. I'm not going to talk about Kyle Pitts. Just only so much a man can really go through in a day. But how about Brenton Strange, Pete? You getting in on Strange season?
Yeah. I wrote him up on Fantasy Life. One of the guys who I thought was still too cheap post free agency. In the way ADP moves, it does take a little while for these guys to rise. He's not sexy enough to just massively shoot up the board, but with no Christian Kirk, with no Evan Ingram, the GM came out and said, like, we love Brenton Strange. Like, he's going to be a starting tight end on a solid offense with a QB who has already proven he'll force feed his tight end targets. So I like that a lot. I think structurally, obviously QB, obviously tight end, I think we're done at wide receiver. Maybe we take a rookie dart super late, but from here on out, it's the other 3 positions.
Sounds good to me. I know Jaden Higgins has been someone who I've, tried to draft almost every single time around. He's certainly going to be potentially that wide receiver 8 for us later. But again, already got Neighbors, Evans, Flowers, Ridley, Golden, McMillan, and Pittman. Feeling pretty good there. So Drake May off the board. At the risk of jinxing us one pick before, Pete, would you be cool with Justin Fields here?
Yes, and Prescott goes. We have to, I think we lock up Fields for sure here. I think it's a great price. What pick number is this here? It's hard for me to see.
115.
Yeah, 115. Obviously, he's going. We take him a little ahead of ADP. I think we had to with this quarterback run. We don't have to stack Fields. We know the thesis with him is just going to be running a ton. And I do envision him getting more expensive from even this. Like, why wouldn't we be drafting Justin Fields where we drafted, Anthony Richardson and Jaden Daniels in previous years, which was like 9th, 10th round there. He's going to get to that spot. I feel pretty confident.
Even last year with the Steelers, when he got his job taken, he was the QB8 in fantasy points per game after you remove, the one snap Wildcat stuff from the end of last season. So currently in our QB ranks, he's between the QB11 and the QB15. I have him at QB12. So I do think, again, just guys that run as much as Fields seldom bust. When they do bust, it usually is situations like Anthony Richardson where they just straight up lose their job or they get injured. And again, $40 million over the course of these next 2 years, $30 million guaranteed. Not saying Fields is going to turn around as a passer. I'm not expecting the Jets to make it all that easy, but again, man knows how to score fantasy points, even if the real life progression's still a bit of a work in progress. So Bateman, our guy, Evan Ingram going after that. Cam Scatabo, a rookie running back, maybe a position we're going to have to start looking at here, Pete. Also the onesies, but any running backs here that maybe are, you fancy?
Yeah, I always like leaning into a correlation. So Tajay Spears kind of paired with with Ridley makes sense if we're buying in on this offense. I do like Tootin. Obviously blazed at the combine. His stock is up a ton, but if he gets some significant draft capital, I think that could be really fun. And we have a solid core, right? Like, even though we're only at 2 running backs, JT, Kenneth Walker are too nice. So I feel like we can take some swings here. I like some of these names we have in the queue. And generally in this range, I'm like, can I get 2 of these guys? Is there a way to play kind of the ADP game and just try to lock up a couple of them?
I'd be very cool with Tajay Spears. RB5 during the fantasy playoffs last year. Certainly came with Tony Pollard a bit banged up, but honestly, Spears was the one actually missing a lot of early season action. I think made people forget just how dynamic he can be, as a pass catcher. So Spears, Ridley, hopefully Cam Ward a little bit later. Just, back in the Titans and the Jets passing games here. What could go wrong? But I'm cool locking in Spears if you are. Yeah,
let's do it. I think that makes a lot of sense there. Man, I had completely forgotten too about how much he crushed in the playoffs. Because Pollard had I remember last year Pollard was like questionable almost every single week, was DNPs in practice, and then would just like gut it out. And then at the very end of the season, they're like, all right, no, now it's Tajay time.
Man, I know he was like one of the guys in the week 18. We had Jeff did some great articles on us about the incentives, and Pollard was just like, come on, 60 more yards. But unfortunately, I don't think he quite got there. So gutted through it and everything. But yeah, Spears at the end. And again, he was able to do this in an offense that, we all saw was not good at all. But you just had these games. I mean, look, week 15. 4 carries, 5 yards, 1 touchdown. But hey, you had on 6 catches for 87 yards and another touchdown, and all of a sudden we are cooking. So one of those rare running backs where honestly, like if Tajay Spears finished 2nd or 3rd on the Titans and targets next year, wouldn't be the most shocking thing in the world. So just love, if we had missed him here, I'd be painting the picture like, oh, we want the 1B running back in Tennessee. Give me a break. But once he's on the squad, Pete, that's when we can start getting excited about the guy. I do love this next pick. Again, we were already done with wide receiver anyway, but Hollywood Brown going round 11, Pete. I mean, he was a round 4, round 5 guy last year, and then he just got hurt.
Yeah, he's an interesting one. He was close to a big game, I think against the Texans in the playoffs, another kind of unrealized air yards guy. I've been taking him, but pretty much only on Mahomes teams. If I'm doing a KC bet, I get one of Worthy or Rashi, and then I like tacking him on because he's the cheapest kind of viable piece on the Chiefs. So yeah, I like that. Anytime you can kind of buy the dip on a passing game that's gonna probably be as low as it's been in a long time. Like even if we get a decent, final season from Travis Kelce, if you get full strength Worthy, Rice, and Hollywood, that's a pretty scary trio there.
I do wonder if we were just all 1 year early on that kind of full Chiefs bounce back ascension, going on. Because again, you take out Rice early, Worthy was having all kinds of problems until really November, December later in the year. And then Hollywood Brown, breaks his collarbone or wherever, bone was around there back in the preseason. So hopefully get, another player there in the draft. We'll see if they can finally hit on one of these day 2 wide receivers, of course. But yeah, Chiefs certainly pretty affordable for the time being. Travis Kelce as well, man, going around pick 100. Absolutely wild time to be alive. But a couple of picks away here. Colston Loveland sliding just a little bit. We also have Isaiah Likely. Yeah. I still, we could go tight end, but we still do have Tootin. Jalen Wright's going a little bit later. Thoughts on, trying to get our guy Tutton out of what? Vatek? Is that what he is?
Well, yeah, I do like Tootin, but I will say Loveland on a tight end needy team. The Jets have been, okay, he goes. I was going to say the Jets have been mocked to take Loveland too. So like the Fields to Loveland thing could have been a fun little Galbrain stack. But yeah, that's off the table, and we'll have plenty of late round. I think we do Tootin at this price.
Yeah, this will be a good one. So hopefully, we're already on. Cool. Got Tootin, RB4, come on down. Again, just ridiculous athletic profile. Is he the one, Pete, where, again, I'm grinding through the running backs. We'll have our supermodel RB breakdown here next week. So make sure you guys tune in that show with myself and Dwayne The Rock McFarland. But is Tootin the one who hasn't had a single career carry under center? Because one of those running backs is getting that thrown at him.
Oh, really? I didn't. I wasn't that in the weeds on it. I mean, he took over the backfield at VTech after transferring there and had a really high dominator rating. So, but I don't know. That could be.
top 53 RAS, relative athletic score, of all time, since 1987. The dude is a freak among freaks out there. And just again, when you look at kind of what he was able to do and some of the comp running backs, where if he can get the day 2 draft capital, going to be pretty enticing, and someone who certainly could be, rising up this landscape in a hurry if he lands in the right spot. So Isaiah Likely next, as we are again making our way through round 12 over at Underdog Fantasy in the big board contest. Justin Fields, our only quarterback so far, but in our running back room, got Jonathan Taylor and Kenneth Walker both fairly early, Tajay Spears and Bashaw Tutton filling out our room, and then our wide receiver pretty much done at this point. Might add one more, but went pretty hard in the paint with Malik Neighbors, Mike Evans, Zay Flowers, Calvin Ridley, Matthew Golden, Jalen McMillan, and Michael Pittman. However, we are still waiting on those pesky tight ends. So Jake Ferguson, Kyle Pitts sitting atop the leader right now, but hey, Kate Otten, not that we want to load up on too many Buccaneers without Baker Mayfield here, but he was someone with some stretches last year. Even Cole Kmet, Pete, Cole Kmet's almost like the Najee Harris of tight ends, where no one likes him, but you look at it, he's had some good production here or there. And man, if we believe in Caleb Williams, we believe in Ben Johnson, and we believe in the offense, Cole Kmet should be a part of that in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I like buying in on new offensive environment changes there. What is Cam Ward still available, or is he gone?
Good question. He is available and should maybe be our next pick, honestly.
Yeah. I'm still I'm not panicked at tight end at all, because I think this work, if we can get Ward, then we can do one of the Colts quarterbacks or Jameis as our QB3.
Yeah, that'll give us a little bit more flexibility there. I really like the running backs coming up too. There's some high-end handcuffs, even guys that maybe have room for a little bit more than that. So I say let's lock in Ward on this next one, and then maybe take a stab at a running back. If Richardson's there for us, great. But if we already have Ward and we lose Richardson, that's fine, because then we can still get DJ or Jameis later.
Yeah, that checks out for me as well here. Yeah, if we don't get Cam Ward, then we really are all right, let's take Richardson, let's take Jameis, let's take Daniel Jones. We're really kind of spraying and praying. Ward's going to start 17 games. I feel pretty good about that.
Come on down, Mr. Ward. Already got Calvin Ridley and Tajay Spears. So again, making a pretty nice Titan stack there. Honestly, we could get chicky with it later as well. It's all starting to come together thanks to Mr. Cam Ward. So Theo Johnson, another late round tight end, as I continue to fill up our queue. But next player at the top of the queue right now, Pete, I have been drafting him a good amount already. What about some Jalen Wright, someone who did have day 3 capital technically last year? However, the Dolphins did actually send a 2025 third round pick in order to get him. Raheem Mostert went ahead and took his talents to Las Vegas. And yes, Devon Achane is the man, but also already had his fair share of injuries during these first 2 seasons. And as we saw, particularly in 2023, Mike McDaniel has been willing to use more than one running back at a time when Mostert, couldn't stop scoring touchdowns. So yes, like any running back here, the caveat is we could go into April's draft and Miami decides to add someone else. But Jalen Wright, man, is someone where if we do have, kind of a better feel in May that he is looking like the Dolphins RB2, this is one of these guys where, again, kind of in a tier where you're looking at Ray Davis, Blake Corum, Tyler Algier. Yes, they are one injury away from skyrocketing up, but Jalen Wright is unique in that I think he could actually have some standalone value even if Achane stays healthy.
Yeah, I think it's a good call. And I mean, we're getting, we were excited about Jalen Wright as a prospect. It was holy cow, this dude was fast. It's all right, they're just, lining up another one of these guys for this, Shanahan style, run scheme here. And then he was just kind of, he didn't get a ton of opportunities, but like you said, at worst, the contingent upside is still there. I mean, we saw Achane's efficiency really fall off with all that volume. Jalen Wright would be the fresh legs there. So yeah, I think as a contingent upside bet, that is still a really nice price there. And what's his ADP relative to what pick we're at?
We're going to be 6 picks past if we can still be able to get him. We are at pick 163 right now. He's going 157.
Okay. Yeah.
How do you feel about some of these
price.
other guys? Because again, I like the Wright having a potential path to stand alone. But hey, last year, Ray Davis, Blake Corum, even Tyler Algier. Do you think there's something to be said about just not drafting guys who have almost zero chance of actually figuring it out without an injury? Or is it just is there maybe a certain round where you're willing to do that?
Yeah, I do think it's this round, and it's so easy for a running back to pay off their draft cost in this range. So Jalen Wright does fall to us because a lot of times
Let's do it.
people do get tripped up on it. Why would I draft a backup running back? But let's even say Achane. In the best example I always use was when Alexander Madison was behind Dalvin Cook in Minnesota.
Yeah.
And it was like every year Dalvin Cook would miss 2 to 3 games, and you knew what you were getting from Madison. And the more comparable or modern comp is Zach Charbonnet to Kenneth Walker. It's like when Zach Charbonnet is starting, you're getting a top 15 running back. Like you can just pencil those points in. And at these costs, you really only need 2 to 3 weeks like that. You get 2 to 3 weeks of 15 plus points from a running back in this range. He's paid off his draft costs. And then if those weeks happen to come in the fantasy playoffs, like they did for, say, Tajay Spears last year, then all of a sudden you have a stone cold league winner. So you don't need as much as you think from these picks. It's okay if they're not starters. The whole essence of zero RB is sometimes that works in your favor because it's like, let the other running back get all the wear and tear. And then when it really matters to us, weeks 15 and 17, your fresh-legged running back is actually getting the work.
Pick 150, pick 160. You start looking at the other positions, and they might as well be, crapshoots as well. So certainly does seem like the more reasonable time to draft, more of a strict handcuff. When you do see guys like Zach Charbonnet going pick 113, even, a Trey Benson going pick 144, maybe just a little bit too steep. But then again, they're just one injury away from working out in their own right. So just because, again, someone's a little bit more expensive doesn't mean they're off the table. But just Jordan Mason was someone who I know a lot of people got behind later in the process. There was that Kyle Shanahan quote where I still to this day, Pete, think that, Elijah Mitchell, if he hadn't gotten hurt, was going to split things up, a bit more evenly with Mason than some thought. But he did get hurt, and then Mason became this, superstar for the first 7-8 weeks of the year. But it's just worth remembering, like, yes, it worked out for Mason, but Blake Corum, Trey Benson, Ray Davis. I mean, there's a lot of running backs out there. Tyler Allgeier's another one where, again, just one injury away from really shooting up those ranks in a hurry. So just a good example of why you should, again, be trying to have a clear mind with these ever-evolving RB depth charts. But as we get into round 15, Pete, we have, 16, 17, 8, 9, 6 more picks to go through. 2 quarterbacks. We're going to take one more there. We now have 5 running backs. Maybe we add an extra one there. Thinking 4 tight ends on the squad?
It could be, but even then, like I see our queue right now, and it's like if we got Bretton Strange, Mike Gesicki, and Chigakonkwo, I would be fine with that. Hunter Henry's still there. There's those rookies I mentioned. I think it could still be a 3 tight end team, but I think how we're building, we're going to kind of have a luxury pick. We could certainly go for tight ends. I think we could do 4 quarterbacks too, potentially, if we really wanted to do something like Daniel Jones and Jameis Winston and just be like, hey, maybe together these 2 give us a year of full quarterback. But yeah, I think we have a decent amount of flexibility right now.
We did miss out on Mr. Anthony Richardson, but again, took Cam Ward, and we're just kind of filling up our running backs. So something that we kind of did figure was going to happen. As we get into our round 15 pick, though, Tyler Allgeier is still sitting there. We did not take Bijan Robinson early, obviously, and after that, things do start to fall off. And as I say that, of course, Tyler Allgeier goes off the board. So you ready to pull the trigger on a tight end, Pete? We also still have Damian Martinez and Austin Eckler as viable running backs.
I'm excited about Strange. Let's grab Strange as get us a first running tight end here.
Another Penn State product. Honestly, I wouldn't mind keeping going with the Nittany Lions. Theo Johnson is someone who had ridiculous athleticism scores going to last year. He was a bit of a popular streamer, and then we actually saw them go ahead and give him a full-time starting job. Now, it didn't work out because, yes, Daniel Jones, wasn't able to get going. I'm not saying the Giants are necessarily going to have this better picture, but when you do look at, okay, maybe Jameis does get 6-7 starts under there, we've seen the way you can elevate these other offenses, and if Theo Johnson's going to be the full-time tight end, and Darius Slayton, someone with 36 million reasons why he'll have a starting job, certainly could be, again, some of these later round gems. I mean, has there been a couple guys like this, Pete, where when you're in round 16 and beyond, you just keep finding yourself clicking on them?
Well, one of them is Harold Fannin Jr. You know, Dwayne's supermodel got me pretty excited about him. He has him as like a much better prospect than this ADP would indicate. He's essentially free in these drafts, kind of a glorified wide receiver type as well. So yeah, I've been really, the three I've been taking, it's Fannin, it's Arroyo, and Mason Taylor, kind of rotating through these guys. But Fannin definitely my favorite. But man, like you said, like this is why late round tight end this year looks so good, at least right now. Like all of these names up here, you know, Cade Otton can pop up for big games, has nice contingent upside if there's an injury there. Gesicki, even with T. Higgins back in the fold, was really earning targets at a high clip last year down the stretch. I mean, this is a nice range for tight ends.
Even Pat Freiermuth, I mean, he had 7 touchdowns, 650 yards last year, and he's still available at this point. He's not anymore because, you know, I mentioned him, so of course he had to get drafted. But similar guy to, you know, Cole Kmet going on right there. Dalton Schultz, who I have gone on record hating for like the last 36 months now, is still going to be available near pick 200. Yeah, if CJ Stroud and company get, you know, back going even somewhat close to what we saw in 2023, maybe he could certainly be someone. So Mike Gesicki just got paid, getting, you know, the Mike G nickname from Burrow. Like there are a lot of good options here at the bottom that I continue to be able to talk myself into. So good stuff going on there. We still do have Daniel Jones and Jameis Winston. Now, Pete, you know, I would like to think we've done an okay job here, but anything with our draft, again, as we get into mid-round 16 that you're like, man, probably shouldn't have made that pick. You feel like we'd be better off if we had gone maybe a different direction positionally?
I mean, other than
hold that thought because we're on the what tight end you want here? We're on the clock. Sorry.
Yeah, let's do Mike Gesicki. I think he's a nice value, and then we can kind of decide for that third one. Do we want to do a rookie? Do we want to stack up Cam Ward potentially with Chigakonkwo? Cool. I think this gives us a really strong base. Like we're not going to be taking zeros with Strange and Gesicki, and then we can kind of play a little more loose with that third one.
And come on down Mike Gesicki accordingly. So yes, again, for the record, I turn my back on Chuba Hubbard. I will have to, you know, get my push-ups in after the show. But other than that, Pete, how are you feeling about the squad?
No, I'm feeling good about it. I mean, you always get a little nervous when you're going late round QB because it is, you know, the quarterbacks fly off the shelves and you're really trying to balance a couple things. You're balancing price, but you're also trying to get stacks. Like we're trying to make things easy on ourselves by making bets on offenses. I think we did a good job in that. Fields is a guy that doesn't need to be stacked the way he's going to win. And then Cam Ward, we're now building out this really nice bet on the Titans and saying he's going to really inject new life into their offense. So we'll see what we do with our third quarterback here. I'm honestly kind of leaning towards this 4 QB option with Jones and Winston because couldn't you see a scenario where these two Frankenstein for a full season where Jameis is maybe at the start as like the starter and Daniel Jones probably loses the camp battle to Richardson, but then Richardson probably has one of his patented meltdowns and Daniel Jones comes in for the fantasy playoffs. Like I could see them combining for one full season of production.
Look, the Jameis number isn't great. I don't love that. I have a harder time wrapping my mind around him actually getting the full chance to start. But to see Daniel Jones get $14 million, even if Richardson wins the job, to your point, even if he has a good week 1, week 2, I think this dude is like 2 bad quarters away from not being the guy anymore in Indy. And it's unfortunate because, like, why'd you draft Richardson in the first place if you don't want to give him, you know, that long of a leash? But I just feel like the Colts have seen enough. Maybe it's with his work ethic. Maybe it's with his inability to stay healthy. I mean, again, you don't just hand someone $14 million to not compete at all and not have a chance at any point.
Yeah, exactly. So I think the job security for both of those is not great. And I wrote about this for my best ball strategy piece on Fantasy Life last week, and I've been doing weekly strategy articles. And you don't want to be taking zeros at the onesie position specifically. Like that really hurts your team. This is one of those unique spots in that we're trying to not take a zero by taking 2 of them and basically Frankensteining one together. But in general, I wouldn't want to just I would want to avoid taking one of these guys as my QB3 because there is a good chance that they're a zero for the majority of the season.
You want to take one more running back here? Or you think, again, we have 4 more picks. Should we just be blowing them all on quarterbacks and tight ends? We have Strange and Gesicki, so I think if we go 1 more tight end, 2 more quarterbacks, that's fine. But would you rather use that last start another running back or wide receiver?
Yeah, I think I'm feeling good at wide receiver here. What are we at? 5 running backs?
We have 5, and the guys who I would say could be at the top of the queue, potential Chiefs RB1, Kareem Hunt, Marshawn Lloyd in year 2. It's kind of wild to see him priced as low as he is. Sean Tucker been getting a little bit of hype. Matthew Berry pointed out at the combine. Wouldn't be an Ian Hartitz best ball stream if I didn't point out Antonio Gibson's available. Also, a couple rookies in Jordan James and Trevor Etienne. Any of those guys you really loving?
I mean, I like the Sean Tucker angle. Like we made a bet on the Bucks already. I always like getting a running back with the wide receivers as well. I'm down for that. And if Matthew had that nugget on it, that's the final push we need.
We can wait a little bit, though. He might be here still in a couple of picks. He's 229. So tight end, Chig, Titans stuck?
Yeah.
Let's do Chig.
Yeah, let's do Chig.
I still think Chig is legitimately good at football, too,
Right. And how do you, we know that tight end production, outside of the super elite guys, is ultimately just going to be tied to the success of the offense, right? If the offense is humming, the tight end, we saw 2 years ago, Dalton Schultz is a guy. When the offense was humming, he was having a really good season. So Chig, I think, even if we think he's just a guy, if this offense takes a leap, if Cam Ward is really good, and even though people aren't super stoked on him for fantasy purposes, we're constantly wrong about these early round quarterbacks. So I don't know. If Cam Ward's awesome, all of these guys are going to smash their ADP because they're so cheap.
And with Chig, last year didn't start off great. And I'm looking at his, game log right now. He was kind of in a part-time role. He wasn't getting fed that much in the passing game. But you look down the stretch, and he was playing 85% of the snaps in week 16. He had, during the fantasy playoffs, 10, 11, and 7 targets out there. His efficiency, it was a small sample as a rookie, but it was legit yards per out run and that stuff. He was a top 2 tight end in football. It was just okay, can he go from being that gadget guy to being more of a full-time player? And yeah, he started to get there at the end of the year. We need to remember that, yes, these tight ends do take a little bit longer to develop sometimes. Year 4, Chigozie Okonkwo breakout. I am here for it. So you now got our tight end room, pretty much settled with Strange, Gesicki, and yes, getting chiggy with it over there. 18, 19, 20 rounds still to go. So again, going to be getting a running back and then probably just loading up with R2 QBs. But I did mention his name. I'm cool with going Sean Tucker, but the Marshawn Lloyd thing, Pete, he was someone that I drafted too much of last year. Wish I would have known he'd have the August hamstring injury. Can't be perfect with our injury gods and everything, but Lloyd still is an explosive pass catching running back with day 2 capital. We like the Packers, and look, Jacobs was awesome last year. He got paid $48 million. He was always going to be their RB1, but Aaron Jones was Matt LaFleur's RB1 for a couple years too, and that didn't stop A.J. Dillon from racking up 200-plus touches annually. There's a scenario, I think, last season where if Dillon or Lloyd didn't get hurt, that could have been a bit more of a committee than maybe we would have been expecting.
I know, and I feel like I'm so biased. I'm generally pretty good at detaching my biases and not letting it, really impact my thoughts in the drafts. But I took so much Marshawn Lloyd last year. I was so in on him and I felt so burned. And it is hard to know how much of that was truly him being injured and how much of it was the team just not having the faith in him. How much of it was Josh Jacobs was just really good and they didn't need to go to him. But yes, I guess the real question is, how do we feel about the contingent upside? Do we feel like he's for sure the running back 2, or are there going to be other guys in the mix there? If he's for sure the running back 2, then he's an awesome pick.
Again, you're round 18, 19, past the first 200 picks. There's a reason these guys are available in the first place, so I don't want to be too much of a stickler with it. But no, I'm not confident in that at all. Even though A.J. Dillon's out of the picture, Emmanuel Wilson actually stepped up last year. I believe he did come back. He was an exclusive rights free agent, always a bit wonky over there. But yeah, to your point, it is tough to tell. Okay, you're supposed to be healthy by now. Are you good, or are you maybe just not as good as we thought? So either way, we are going to be taking Sean Tucker now in round 18 over Kareem Hunt. Yeah.
I think the Chiefs are going to add someone. I think Kareem Hunt was just kind of a product of that very specific run out to the season. But whether it's Pacheco getting back to form or them drafting someone, I feel like the Hunt fantasy relevance days are gone.
I think you're right. It's just wild to, again, see how many touches he did rack up last year. The last 2 years, really, just wasn't even on a team. And then week 3 comes around, finds a new starting job in Cleveland and then in KC. So Pacheco would seemingly be the RB1. And yeah, go ahead. Yeah, they took
Did
Jameis.
someone take Winston? Come on. Let us have a little fun.
God. We got God. Is there, let's see, Jackson Dart is available.
I don't mind Dart. I don't mind doing this. I think we commit to this 4 quarterback thing here.
I'm down. There's not really, I mean, again, we got our tight ends. I'm not in love with any of these other, kind of running backs or wide receivers available at this point anyway. So Daniel Jones going to be our guy. We already got Michael Pittman anyway, but man, I'll tell you what, Jackson Dart runs around a lot more than people expect. Like he has a little bit of Drake May to him. Okay. He's not Justin Fields or anything like that. But when you do start looking at him, I believe he was actually only number 2 to Jalen Milroe, kind of among the bigger QBs.
Yeah. Yeah, Milroe is interesting. It's hard. Like I was writing up, Jackson Dart to me seems like the one other rookie, obviously outside of Sanders and Ward, who I think will for sure get starts in 2025. Yeah. Obviously, I think his starts will probably be back weighted, right? If he goes to a team like the Steelers, if he goes to who would be another one, the Seahawks have been kind of rumored. Mm-hmm. Maybe Sam Darnold has his classic meltdown, and then we see Dart at the end. I'm kind of thinking of him. Remember, like rookie year Desmond Ridder, where he took over for Mariota in the fantasy playoffs. It's like I feel like a team who drafts Dart with a top 40 pick is going to be like, all right, let's see what he has. For our purposes, for fantasy, like if Fields and Cam Ward can get us to the playoffs and then we get to add in Jackson Dart starts, that's pretty interesting.
My counter would be Jalen Milroe just ran reportedly. It's a pro day, so who knows saw that for sure. There's Jackson Dart, going to make my argument even a little bit easier. But okay, Jalen Milroe, he just ran a 4.3 allegedly. He can throw the freaking football out of the stadium. Is it going to go to his intended receiver? Probably not, but he has a big arm. If there was going to be a surprise round 1 player where we're like, oh yeah, I mean, I remember reading mock drafts a couple months ago where Jalen Milroe was a round 1 player. All the football has already been finished. Okay, Milroe has gone from a round 1 guy to a day 3 guy without a single other snap being played. I mean, we saw Anthony Richardson go 4th overall a couple years ago. Like Milroe fits that exact sort of archetype where someone will probably lose a job by drafting him, which not good for their real life team. I'm not saying he's gonna be good there, but this dude as a rusher is absolutely electric, man.
Did we just lose Daniel Jones too, or did you select him for us?
I drafted Daniel Jones.
Oh, okay. I was like, God damn, if we got sniped on. Yeah. So what do we have? One more pick after this?
One more. Now I'm saying Milroe might be the lottery ticket.
Yeah. Hey, look, I told you, I'm committed to 4 QBs on this team. We keep running out of potential quarterbacks. I mean, Milroe is like the last guy standing who would be – I'd rather do Milroe instead of Russ.
Yeah, or Cousins. I mean, come on, we're trying to have fun here, right? Kenny Pickett, Mason Rudolph. Oh man, Tyler Show's gotten a little bit of hype. I've seen some people even rank him as a legit top 5 quarterback. A little bit older prospect and everything, but who's to say he isn't figuring it out? Joe Milton would be the other one that's maybe a bit more of a wild card. Patriots allegedly wanting a day 3 pick. After that, I mean, once you start seeing T-Bag and Deshaun Watson on the list, it's probably a good sign you've scrolled a little bit too far. But in the spirit of scrolling the F down, Pete, it's a great strategy you helped popularize last year. I mean, what is kind of your point in the draft where you do start saying, in your own words, F it, I'm scrolling down?
Yeah. I mean, I just, kind of what the thing I was writing about too is like, as the season progresses or the off season, we get more information, we can take on more risks. I just in general want to be avoiding as many zeros as we can. But I think in this particular instance, I think it's worth it because like you said, maybe how the NFL feels about Dart and Milroe isn't as wide of a gap as we're envisioning right now. If those two were flipped, would that be surprising? Yes. Would it be shocking? Probably not. It'd be very plausible that a team would have Milroe higher on their board. So in those spots, I think it is a good note. You don't want to get overconfident. We want to use the mock drafts. We want to use the reports as, information to inform our decisions. But if you had 100% Jackson Dart and no Milroe, that would represent like an overconfidence that's probably not reflected in the true probabilities.
I appreciate all the, insiders and people that are, really just super invested in their mock drafts, doing the best they can. But it's just hard for me to treat them like they're this, complete gospel when we see someone like Shedeur Sanders go from being a consensus top 2, top 3 pick. Then the combine comes around and, I guess everyone had their conversation at the steakhouse and all of a sudden, oh, he's not even in round 1. And then here we are a few more weeks later. Absolutely nothing has happened, but oh yeah, people are actually hearing that. Yeah, he probably will end up being a top 5 pick, and thus we have him back up there in the drafts. I mean, it really all is just one big, rumor mill, Pete. So the fact that, again, maybe someone is keeping the mill rope propaganda tight to the chest could certainly help us out here. But about to close things out, can we get one quick last review of the squad, Pete? Just, maybe how you're feeling overall.
Yeah, this was a fun team. I think the one place, and we've been kind of talking about it, where you start to feel a little weak is at quarterback. We're making some pretty big assumptions. Obviously, we need Justin Fields and Cam Ward to play 17 games. I think that's kind of the big hinge point for this team. Not worried at all about our tight ends. I mean, you're able to get starting tight ends who are going to earn targets cheap. We know that position, to me, it's like outside of Bowers, McBride, and Kittle, it's just like all of these guys are roughly the same. So why not wait a little bit there? I love our running back room. We get 2 anchors early, build it out with some upside. Our wide receivers are loaded. We invested a lot of capital in that early. We built out some team level bets. It's instead of having to hit a 20-leg parlay of all these random one-off picks, it's like, hey, if the Titans are good, a quarter of our roster is cooking. And that is kind of the whole point of correlation, to kind of reduce the number of things we have to get right. So this isn't an unconventional team with the 4 quarterbacks, but this is what we mean when we say you do have to let the draft come to you. And we kind of got pushed in this direction where we made some decisions at quarterback to kick the can down the road. And then that ended up being a 4 quarterback build. So that's always that, what do I like to say, quantity or quality, not both. We didn't have a ton of quality at quarterback, so we did a lot, went higher on the quantity.
And as you know, hey, we are drafting 4 quarterbacks here. That is unique to best ball, obviously. For those of you not overly familiar with the format, maybe should have started the episode with those rules, Pete, as opposed to doing it at the very end. But again, just one of the more intricacies where, yeah, you don't have one. You don't need to worry about what week you're going to start them. Or again, try and just piece together through 4 money ball, if you will, through these 4 guys. Get what someone else might be getting when they use that 3rd round pick on someone like Josh Allen and the sorts. But invite all you guys to go ahead and subscribe to our Fantasy Life newsletter, which we do have Professor Pete always in session, breaking down the newest and goodest, just overall strategies in best ball land. And again, just overall at Pete's YouTube channel, great stuff going on there as well. So thank you, Pete. And thank you for listening to us today. For producer Matt, for producer Kelsey, I'm Ian. Thanks again for checking out the Fantasy Life Show. And until next time, take care, everybody.